All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Between a Pot and a Hard Place. I'm Stephen Colton,
I'm Christopher Patrick.
and this has been a crazy week.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah, so apparently I'm on the I was going to say FBI, but the Facebook's most wanted list. Um,
I didn't realize that I was recording with a comment. So,
yeah, I guess it could be FBI, the Facebook International Corporation.
okay, so you
Um,
got to explain to me exactly what got you in trouble.
yeah, so apparently, there was this group um, based on the show Futurama, the animated
Yeah,
series. And in that show, there's a lot of, adult humor. And I just made a comment along with that, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was like, I think it had something to do with a comment or a quote or whatever from the show. And apparently there are these Facebook algorithms that flag words automatically. And I think the word nude was in that comment. And then instantly I'm blocked. I'm like, what? And then I had a secondary account that I made for the same reason years back. Well, originally I created that second account because I couldn't remember the password for the first one, and then I had both. Probably should have just gotten rid of one of them, but I kept both, and then that account got hit, and I'm like, why? And then I created another one to kind of just get through all this, and then that one was gone within minutes. I'm like, what is going on with this? And I created yet another one just to contact a couple of people. I wasn't posting anything, wasn't sharing anything, like nothing. And now I can't access that one. I'm like, what is going on? It turns out the first two one of them got permanently disabled. Of course, I requested a review of that and had to submit a photo of my identification and all this stuff to prove that it wasn't a fraudulent account. And I'm still waiting to see what happens with that. But yeah, it's been crazy. And I appreciate the fact that somebody cared enough to check in on it and say, hey, look, I think this is fraud. But I wish they would have somehow found a way to contact me to say, hey, is this you? But wow.
It's just crazy. I had never thought that Facebook was so vigilant about,
Yeah.
this kind of stuff. And again, I've never been in a position where I've uh, been put in Facebook jail, but I know a number of people who have,
Mm.
who typically are outspoken about things, um,
Yeah.
but it seems a little bit draconian.
Yeah,
So
and it's just crazy the amount of people that say the things that they say and no consequences whatsoever. It's like, oh, and then you see them like, oh, I've been banned a million times. Some people say, like, how are you still here? They're like, oh, I have like 12 accounts. Well, why
yeah,
is it that I get flagged for having 3 or 2 or any number above 1, and these other people openly say I have 12 accounts and nothing happens to them? And it's weird,
yeah.
and it's been
I
really
think it's
frustrating.
partly. I think part of the problem is that it's not. It's something that they're doing that isn't being applied like across the spectrum equally,
Yeah,
right? It comes down to somebody reporting a post, or however the algorithm works. But yeah, it does seem like there are some people who can get away with being just complete jerks on the internet, and they don't have any issues with being banned. And then, good decent guys like yourself end up being targeted by this thing. It just seems crazy to me.
yeah. The biggest thing that I was really disappointed in is like, yeah, it's a bummer that I can't use Facebook because there's several people that I know that I only talk to through Facebook, and you quickly
Yeah,
realize when you don't have that access, you're like, I'm gonna text this guy or that person. I'm like, wait, I can't do that because I don't know, anyone else's contact information, even an email for many people. So I'm like, what do I do? And I just have to close it because the app I can log into the original account, but I can't do anything.
yeah. It's
It's
amazing
crazy.
how much we take for granted how we use Facebook for a lot of different things.
Mhm.
So I don't know if I don't think we've ever had this conversation about censorship. Uh,
No,
what is
I don't think
your
so.
what is your opinion about censorship?
Now, see, going through this situation, I guess there is a lesson to be learned here, and even though you have to really be careful about how you type things. And I tell my mom all the time, she's like, "Oh, this lady's arguing with me on Facebook," and And I'm just like, okay. And my mom's she's not like tech savvy that much, but she understands how to use Facebook at least. And, you know, I tell her like, be careful. Don't say certain keywords on Facebook because, in my experience, like more recently, it can get you kicked. And unfortunately, it's happened to me a few times. So each time you do it, it's a longer ban. Like the first time is like 3 days and then 7 days. And now this one is said 30 days. But then when I log in from my browser on my phone, the mobile browser, it says 7 days, which now is like 4 days left. And when I log in on the computer, it says 30 days, which is like 27 days left or something. It's weird. I don't understand. I don't know how long I have in this prison. But I tell my mom, like, be careful about what words you type because, even the algorithms are going to like flag, oh, they said the word idiot. And boom, automatically, this is against our community standards. Like, really? Even if I type the phrase, it is wrong to call someone an idiot. Boom, that's automatically flagged as like, oh, because there's not really any human review. And the other thing I found crazy about it is when I request a review of my information to prove that this isn't, I don't feel as if it's in violation or that I'm not fraudulent, it says, oh, well, due to COVID-19, we have a slower review process. And I'm just like, okay, but yeah, you were very quick to block me or ban me or whatever. And, the COVID didn't slow you down there. So how can you not have one person that's probably going to be working from home anyway? Because I'd say most of the Facebook people are at home working.
My guess is the algorithm. My guess is that the algorithm is what they use in order to gather intel, and then they use an actual person to look at the evidence and decide the severity.
Yeah, that could be
probably what's going on. I feel I've never been really a supporter of censorship. I do think that sometimes political correctness goes too far.
Yeah.
And I think people should have the right to say what they mean to say. At the same time, we certainly seen examples of people who have taken that to extremes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is it. I think that ultimately the idea of, putting people in Facebook jail or whatever, monitoring what's posted in social media, I think the heart of it is supposed to be in order to make sure that people aren't being abused, that if kids are on it, that they're not being subjected to material that is inappropriate.
Right.
But I think we certainly have seen examples of how, that it's not necessarily fair or uniform, and that certain phrases could end up getting you in trouble, regardless of how it's used. So,
right.
I don't know. I think it's kind of silly. Yeah, and I've seen people that have said much worse things on Facebook than what you've put out there, and yet they haven't experienced this kind of I'll say it, persecution. So.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my comment was labeled under, I think, something along the lines of sexuality and nudity.
Okay.
Because of the word nude was in the comment. I was essentially like it was essentially satire. I was making fun of people. I don't remember exactly the comment itself word for word, but it was basically making fun of people who, mostly, perverted men that go online and speak to women and say, hey, send me nude pictures, like making fun of that. And in the context of the post, like people understood that, but it was just that system that got me. And up until now, I thought, like, if Facebook is acting, and this is a big debate, I guess, going on, and I think I think Facebook has actually been in court over this to determine whether or not they are a publisher or just a service, like a forum. So it's like, I used to think, okay, well, you have a set of terms and conditions that you all agree to when you sign up for an account. So why should the company be held liable for what you say? But at the same time, if they're going to be able to freely censor anything and everything you say because they don't think it's appropriate, And that's especially an issue right now as far as all the election stuff goes.
Right.
But there's a difference between flagging, blatant misinformation and saying, "Oh, you can't say what you want as an opinion, or you can't swear on Facebook, because we're gonna tell on you and we're gonna like put you in a bed." No, there's a difference. Like, yes, I get that we have to agree to their terms, but at the same time, they shouldn't be able to censor anything and everything just because they don't see it as appropriate. So I think there needs to be a balance. Like, there should be some accountability on Facebook as a content distributor that they claim they're not. They claim they're not a publisher. They don't publish the content. But if we're following their rules and we're going by the guidelines, then wouldn't that define them as a publisher? The same with television and radio and any other media. Advertisers kind of set the tone of what your content's going to be.
Yeah.
So
I think that in a lot of ways, what's happened is just the fact that I think they've had to make up the rules as they've gone along, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what's happened. Facebook has gotten itself in trouble because of some of the content that it's been allowed, that they've allowed to put out there, right? In the previous election, in 2016, the idea that the Russian involvement in putting out things that were pro-Trump, that were meant to cause division. I think Facebook was put underneath pretty heavy scrutiny because of that. And we've even seen where, terrorist cells had used the liberties that they found in Facebook in order to coordinate attacks and that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously, when it's being manipulated in that way, of course, Facebook has a responsibility to supervise that kind of stuff. But I don't think you're a terrorist, right?
No, I don't think I am.
I don't think you're some global hacker, and so that you shouldn't be treated with that as if you were one. So it's crazy.
Yeah, the whole thing. My opinion on whether or not they need to be considered a distributor or a publisher or whatever, it's kind of cloudy right now. I really think there needs to be some attention to that. And what really got me thinking about it was the president on Twitter. Since I can't use Facebook, I'm looking at Twitter a little bit more, and I sit there on my phone and scroll through Twitter, and of course I see his tweets all over the place. Why I follow the man, I don't know. I guess I just want to see how ridiculous he can become, or
pretty ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I just, not to get too political or anything, but still, it's entertaining because he's definitely, if anything, you can say that he's unpredictable. It's about what he's going to say. You never know what's going to come out. And he's kind of on the side of like, hey, like places like Facebook and Twitter. Of course, it's not for the same reasons that I feel it, but we kind of agree on that level. Of course, he doesn't want anyone to say anything negative about him. Like, I don't like the president. Ban them. Like, my reasoning is like, okay, there's somebody is always going to be offended by something. So you can't just say, here's a list of things you can't do or say, because every at one point or another, like, someone out there is going to be offended by anything that isn't on that list.
Right.
I don't know. It's confusing. It's like, what do you do?
Do people have the right to share things that are knowingly misleading or false?
I don't think so. I think that, if it's false, it's false. But that's the thing. It's like, that's where people like the president can't really tell the difference between opinion and fact. Right. Like, if you see something, it's like, the sky is green. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. I say so. Like, that's obviously not true. But if you say like, I wish the sky could be green, well, that's just a ridiculous opinion, but I know we both know the differences between those, but still, it's just a really crazy situation. And at what point? Yeah.
I think that the question comes at are we going to censor satire, for example?
Yeah.
Right? Satire often uses lies to tell the truth. They exaggerate things, or they blow them out of proportion, or to draw attention to them, sometimes,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And you know, is that 100% truth? You know,
Right.
is it meant for entertainment? I think that again, there's a lot of things. The more power though that we give Facebook to patrol and monitor posts for us, the less control we have.
Mhm.
And
It,
so, and
there's
then
a question like, sorry,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Okay.
I,
Oh, sorry. You go ahead. I'm sorry. We're getting a little like, oh.
I know we need to use the hand raise feature with the two of us. I think the last kind of idea in all of this is that there is no place for you to go and to complain about it. Are you able to
Mhm.
litigate or use evidence to prove that you were harmless?
I mean, I think with my comment, it was all a matter of like perception. There's no real way to say like I wasn't trying to get people to send naked photographs of themselves, which I wasn't. But I mean, I think any stable-minded person could look at the comment and see that it was. And again, I still don't remember word for word exactly what I wrote, but I remember the basic point of it. But anybody can look at it and see like, oh, okay, well, he wasn't actually saying like, I hope you do this, please do this.
Yeah,
And I mean, because if that were the case, then I could understand that being harassment, of sorts. And so I wouldn't want to do that. And if two people wanted to like communicate with each other and do something like that, then that's their business. But I mean, like they could handle that privately. But I don't think there's any way to prove one way or the other if I deserve to be banned or not. Because again, with just simple text, I don't think you could prove intent. You know. So I don't really know what to think about all that. But I have thought about this lately as far as the whole situation of should Facebook be able to censor, and if they should, to what extent should they censor? And I'm thinking, well, what would people think if it came to it, if you had to pay a premium, fee for using Facebook, and at that point, would that grant you the ability to not be so scrutinized for little things you say or do, and would that kind of like take the liability off of Facebook as being like responsible for that content? Because if you're paying to post something, they're just there to facilitate, I guess, not to publish it. I wouldn't mind paying like $2 a month or something.
It is true. I mean, we get to use Facebook and everything it offers for free.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, we're constantly inundated with commercials and advertisements and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I think that they would still patrol and monitor things even if they were charging us.
Yeah, because I mean, there's only so far they can go with it. I mean, I looked at it as like a mobile app, for instance. You can get the free app and see like an ad every minute, or you can pay the $2.99 and never see an ad. It's like that's not worth $3 for me because it's a simple app I might not use every day. Something like Facebook, I wouldn't mind the idea of paying like a $3.99 a month or something small like that to kind of have my true privacy or my true freedom to post. Because if you think about it too, like what grounds does Facebook have to determine what you can and cannot say as long as it's not harming someone? And like they really, and that comes down to like the First Amendment, and everybody's like freedom of speech, freedom of speech. It's like really the freedom of speech is only really granted as protection against the government or from the government rather. The government can't like censor your freedom to speak unless it's a matter of like security or health and public safety or whatever. But what strength or what authority does a website have to determine that if they're not a publisher?
Yeah, but they ultimately they have their rules. If we use their platform, then we have to abide by them.
That's true.
And deal with the oversight. That is the real catch to it. I think that what we need to be doing, I think, probably is maybe be more mindful. We've got a saying at work that we say all the time. It's if it's not written, it's not real, right?
Right. That's a good one.
It is. I hate it, but it's true. It means it doesn't matter what I say to you. if I say I'm going to give you a raise next month, but I don't put it in writing, it's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's the same way when it comes to material that gets put on the internet or on social media or on Facebook. It's okay to have contrary opinions that might
Mhm.
get you in trouble, but you got to be careful
Right.
in you know where and who you share those opinions with. Um, you know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
can go into a bar and tell a biker they're stupid, but
Yeah.
you have to deal with getting punched in the face.
Right.
Um, but
And that's
yeah,
true. I tried to be more careful as far as what I say, but then I started to get comfortable in certain situations on Facebook because, if you're in a group dedicated to one subject matter and all the people in that group understand and appreciate that subject matter, you think you're safe. But you
yeah,
really got to remember the little algorithms and the systems that are there, and they're really starting to really push harder on this in the last year or so. I've noticed,
yeah. I mean,
and yeah,
there's always somebody watching, and that's the simple truth. You know.
yeah. I mean, it's crazy. It's just, and today, maybe kind of switching gears a little bit. Today, I had an interview for another job because I'm always keeping my eyes open
Yeah.
for work. I mean, if I see some better opportunity, I'm gonna at least check it out. And if it seems legit and I think I can do it, then I'm gonna give it a shot. And I don't know if they're out your way. It's not technically fast food, but it's called Steak and Shake. I don't know if you've heard of them or if they're
We have
anywhere
Steak
near
and
you.
Shake here.
You have Steak
Yeah.
and Shake. Okay, we may have
Yeah.
discussed this a little bit. I don't know, but there's a Steak and Shake here locally, and I saw a job posting for $14 an hour. So I'm like, okay, let me give it a shot. I applied. They want to interview me. I'm like, awesome. So today I go and
Great.
interview, and then they give you a smaller application to fill out once you're there, which I the point because you already have all my information. But okay, and I fill it out, and under desired wage I put 14 because that's what the job posting said that the job paid. And they told me that they don't pay people $14 an hour. The only people that they pay $14 an hour are the people that are trained to do everything in the store, which seems
Okay.
fair. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But, she then told me I start people at $10 an hour. I'm like, 10, wow, that's a huge difference. That's almost half. Well, not quite half, but like what, 50% less than I'm not good at math, and especially today. But it's a lot less than what you're advertising the job at paying, and it just really threw me. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like, why
Yeah.
say $14 if it's not 14? You should just say up to 14. I felt like it was a lot of deception there. It was almost like a bait and switch, like, oh, we're gonna draw them in with the 14, and then it's almost like a promise of 14. And I've kind of checked into it today after the interview, and because I was like, is that even legal? But apparently it is, because if I were to go and get hired at this place and they didn't discuss wage at all in the interview, and then I got hired expecting to make 14 and they didn't pay me, then I might have somewhere to kind of lean toward. But
Right.
the fact that they said, oh no, we start at 10 and you could make 14 if you learned everything, that kind of gets them out of any kind of legal trouble with the false advertising and promised wage laws.
But you are right. It is deceptive.
Yeah. And with that being said, too, I really enjoyed the interview. The manager, she was pleasant. It seemed like a great atmosphere. And I told her, I'm at this job now. And she's saying, what are you going to do there? Are you going to leave there? Come here? And I thought, under the impression of $14 an hour, yeah, 2-week notice, goodbye job. Hello, $14 an hour. But now that it's 10, it's like, well, I really don't know. They wanted me to maybe train 3 days a week, because in their Christmas season this year is different, because this Steak and Shake location is not opening for dine-in. It's only drive-through right now, strictly only drive-through. Not because of government restrictions, but because it's their choice. Because they figured it was a lot harder to keep the place sanitized and distanced and on all that stuff. It's much easier to just go drive-through only. And according to them, over the last few months, they've actually made more money that way. They compared their numbers, which they didn't tell me numbers, obviously, but they did say that they've made as much or more by not opening the dining area back up, because with dining in, there's more employees. There's more need for employees. There's all this. So cutting that out saves money and brings people in because they want to go get the food there. The food is actually pretty decent. Like I've had it a few times.
Yeah.
And it's all fresh. It's not like pre-made, sitting in a little warmer for 2 hours. You know, it's good stuff. But I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with it. I'm supposed to get with her tomorrow through text and kind of like give her my schedule and to see if I can maybe squeeze in 3 days a week over there. That would put me at being, you know, active working somewhere all 7 days, which is that something I want to try to do? And then there's the question of it's $10 an hour, at least for the first month. Then after the first month, it might go up, but I don't know if it goes from 10 to 14 or if it goes from 10 to 11 to 12 to, you know, I don't know. And my current job is 12, so that's better than 10. So that little nugget of hope of $14 is like, wow, that could be good. And within a couple of months, I could be making that. But there's no promises that I'll have that anytime soon. So I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm going to put all the eggs in that basket and then get there and it's like, oh, you're stuck at $10 for a year,
Right.
or whatever.
Have you ever done fast food before?
No, I have not.
Okay.
Well, actually, I have to go back on that. I worked at McDonald's for 2 days because I started at night. It was a third shift job, and I started at night. I wasn't trained daytime and then moved to night. My first night was night. And the manager on that shift at that location didn't really care to train me at all. So he kind of just sat in his office playing solitaire for a few hours before he went home. And then I kind of just had to like shadow people all night and follow with them and see what they did. And it's like, that's not really any solid training, because by the second night, I'm still clueless. Like, I don't know how to make French fries. I don't know how to read the little screen for drive-through. I don't know how to do any of this. And at the end of the second night, I'm like, this is just too much. If you're not going to properly train me and expect me to do the job well, and then kind of like get aggravated when I don't do it well, it's like, especially on my second day, it's like, I can't work this way. I just can't do it. But then again, you know, they made it very clear to me that Steak and Shake is not fast food. I'm like, okay, it is, but okay. I consider it.
They've got a drive-through. It's fast food.
Yeah, and you get your food in under 5 minutes, or you know, no more than 10. So it's fast food. You know, the argument that fast food places aren't restaurants is not true. And any place that you can go get served food is a restaurant.
Yeah. What I will tell you is that working in a drive-through lane, you know, you're assembling food there. You're going and dropping fries. Mm-hmm. You're answering the earpiece and taking care of customers, filling drinks. I will tell you, I have probably worked hardest as working at McDonald's and fast food. So,
yeah, I mean, I had the idea going in. I'm like, I know this is going to be something that I might struggle with. Not struggle because it's difficult, but out of frustration. And then it's kind of appealing that there's no customers directly. I mean, yeah, but they're not lined up in front of you. There's not 30 people deep, and it's not like chaos everywhere. You really only have to worry about, here's this one person right now at the window, and then next person.
So they don't have they have no walk-in at all?
No, at least not right now, because when I got to the interview, they told me in the text yesterday, when you get here, call the store, will unlock the door. So they have the doors locked. Like, you can't even walk in to order. And some places are different. Some places are letting you walk in and order and leave with the food, but this place is just like, no, it's easier just to go through the drive-thru. And I guess that makes it, because it's cheaper on them, I think, to operate that way. They could have 4 people as opposed to like 6 or 8 people at a time working, and that's a lot less money they're spending. But yeah, I don't know. I would like the idea of it, and that was one of the questions. Like, why have you? I've noticed that you don't have any food experiences. Why now? Like, what? Well, I mean, I didn't really have a good answer. It's like something I've never done before, really, and it's a new experience. And I didn't want to say, well, your job post said 14, so that's why I'm here. I did say that, but not in that way. I was like, you know, of course it's decent money, and obviously. But yeah, I don't know that I'll end up going because of the whole 10 thing. I might try to have a talk with her tomorrow to see kind of like a rough idea. Like, if I start this job in the next week and I do well in the month, realistically, how soon would I be at $14? not to try to be hitting you with a stick like a piñata, like, come on, money. I'm not, but just, for stability, I have, bills have to be paid, you can't
Yeah,
just go on $9-10 forever.
Right. There are certainly places where they've got a very set schedule for when raises happen. So maybe that's how they're set up. I have not worked for many places that are like that, at least not regarding fast food. I was one of those people that when I worked minimum wage, I got like nickeled and dimed to death. Right? You get a 10-cent raise or a 25-cent raise.
I worked at a grocery store like that once, and a convenience store too. It was like every 3 months, you're like, you get a nickel. It's like, really, just wait for the year and give me a quarter. Or if you're going to go that way, because it's like, or if you're going to give me a raise every few months, just give it to me like a little bit more. Come on. A nickel? What is 5 to 10 cents an hour? What difference is that going to make? That's going to be burned up in taxes anyway. So you're not really going to see that. You don't really see a difference unless it's like a quarter or more, I think.
Right.
But
it's not the 1930s, right?
Yeah, I can't go to McDonald's and buy a hamburger for 14 cents.
No.
Or buy your refrigerator for $100. Or a microwave for like 20, or a TV for 75. Well, TVs maybe, but
yeah.
But yeah, it's not the 1970s or even the 60s or any of those days. But yeah, it's definitely different. I mean, I don't know why. I'm still trying to figure out why I'm constantly trying to find a new job. And I don't know. I think I found out one of the reasons why I had such a hard time over the last month, as far as like being reminded of losing my father and stuff like that. It's coming up on a year, so it's a hard time. But I think I finally started realizing why I got so upset about losing my original job. And I think that's one of the last things that was a constant when my father was still here. And so every little thing that connects me mentally, at least, it's being disconnected in some way. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm starting to realize that, which is good that I'm realizing it. That way I know, not to set myself up for failure, because, hey, it's okay. You don't have to fail at this just because it's something that isn't the last job you had. The fact is that bridge is burned, not by me. I mean, I didn't intentionally burn that bridge with that company, but
right.
I tried getting a job with them at another location. It's just not going to happen. So I got to forget about it and still move on and try to get established somewhere. I just wish my current job still had the full-time availability long-term. I can get the short-term full-time hours and the time in, but January, February rolls around, it might not be there. So I guess that's unfortunate, but in the meantime, I can just work as much as I can there. I think I'm set up now to work like 32 hours or something like that.
Okay.
And 32 or so hours at 12 an hour is not terrible.
No. Would you be able to do 32 hours there and then do more time over at Steak and Shake?
Probably. But that all depends on the pay. I don't think I would struggle and do two jobs when one pays so low. The $10 thing, if that realistically is going to be 6 months to a year before I hit the 14 or even 12, then I don't know if it's worth doing, because it's the time that you have to spend. And I'm still relatively new to the current job I have. It's been about a month, but I've been on such a short schedule and short part-time hours that I haven't really had a chance to fully grasp the thing yet. Like, I can go and kind of like hold my own during work, but there's still a lot of things that I haven't had a chance to experience yet at that job. So learning two jobs at the same time and then going back and forth, it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I don't think I can do that. Not until one is like well established and I'm really comfortable and fluid and good. And then maybe I can kind of free myself up to learn something else and do that. But maybe, I mean, I thought about trying to do the two, but it all depends on, I think, if how quickly I can move up and pay and learn everything at Steak and Shake, possibly. We'll find out a little bit more tomorrow, I guess, when I talk to her about all that. But I just don't want to get in a situation where I'm stuck, which is, I think, why maybe I've avoided fast food or food in general. Because a lot of the times you hear the stories that, oh, they started me at like $8 saying I can make 20 in the next 10 years, like $20 an hour as a manager or this or that. And I've had that experience, not in food, but where a job says, oh, you give me like 6 months, you can be this manager or this or that. And then you work and you wait and you wait. And it goes back to what you said a minute ago. If it's not in writing, it's not real. And those things never materialize. And so I've always had that fear that food work would kind of trap you in that. And
have you done any research into the company as far as pay or anything like that?
I've looked at what I do is when I go to Indeed.com to look for jobs, they have job insights where it shows you average pay and average salaries, depending on how many people actually leave reviews and the information, because not all locations are going to tell these job sites this information. Not everybody's going to leave a review, but I go on those reviews and see, okay, the average, they show the minimum wage, which in the state is $7.25. And then they show the highest for that position based on job ads and things like that. And I always look at that average, because usually if the average says 12, realistically, you might make 11 or, just under that average. And a lot of places pay 20, 30% more than average. But I do look into it a little bit before I try to jump in on it, because if it says make up to this much, and then I'm like, okay, I don't believe you, because I thought 14 for a food place is a little high. Like, what's up with this? Because the average around here is like $11 for a McDonald's or something, and a Chick-fil-A is actually 13, which that's a whole different thing. But yeah, and most of the time though, the averages are like $8, $9. I'm like, no. If I see a low average like that under like 11, it makes no sense to go backwards. Unless I got a call from like Mark Guggenheim that says, please, sir, assist me in finding websites to write for, or some like crazy thing. And then he says, I'm going to pay you $11 an hour for 50 hours. I would do that. Yeah. But I mean, obviously that's not going to happen. But yeah. And,
well, I hope you get the news that you want when you go in tomorrow.
Yeah, and hopefully the Facebook thing works out, because it definitely gave us a big setback on some things, which is a disappointment. And I felt kind of responsible, even though I guess I wasn't directly responsible, but maybe if even though everybody knows joking is joking, or sarcasm is sarcasm, satire is satire, maybe just don't do it. Unless, well, no, there is no unless really, because if Facebook's going to automatically tag a word, no matter what context there is, then you just can't say that. I think private messages are really the only place that's semi-safe, but I'm still paranoid on private messages now, because you don't know. Like, your phone listens to you constantly. Your smartphone always listens to you. I was talking to my uncle earlier through we're gamers, so we'll play Xbox together online, and we'll have little headsets, and I'm telling him something about, I forget what, but I'm like, I was looking into it, and then Google a minute later says, here are some results from the web, from my phone. I'm like, I didn't tell you to look for anything. I almost feel like my phone is like Gideon from Legends of Tomorrow or The Flash.
Right. Yeah.
And I wish I could name my phone Gideon, but they won't let you. The Google Assistants and like the Alexas and all that, you can't name them Gideon. There is a British female accent though on my phone, so it's as close as you could get, I guess. But yeah, I have been watching The Flash again ever since we talked about that. You said you started.
Oh, you have been.
Yeah, I'm on season 2. Season 2, going into the crossover. The second episode, because I was like, there's only 2 episodes of the crossover? I thought there were like 4, but I forgot that Supergirl didn't exist yet. Well, Supergirl was just starting, and they weren't associated because it was on CBS at the time, and there was no connection. And Legends wasn't a thing just yet. It was just starting. So, yeah, it was just Arrow and Flash at that point. And I was watching it on Netflix, but then I got to episode 8 on season 2, which is where the crossover starts. It's when, they discover Hawkgirl and Hawkman, and then Vandal Savage and all that. I forgot how amazing that story was. And I get to that episode, and I realize the next episode is episode 9, which makes sense, but it's all about something else. It's a Christmas episode where Zoom comes in and who did he kidnap? Oh gosh. I can't remember who he kidnaps, but he's like, "What are you doing? Why did you take me?" He's like, "Merry Christmas." And I'm like, "What?" And I forgot all about that. Then I'm like, "Wait, where's part 2 of the crossover?" And I realized that we talked about this before. Netflix doesn't have them connected
They don't.
on the one show.
You'd have to go over to Arrow and watch and scroll through to find it.
Yeah.
They really need to solve that. I agree.
I did remember though that I have, except for season 7 or 6. 6 was the latest. Yeah, I don't have season 6 yet because I haven't bought it yet. But I have 1 through 5 on Blu-ray, and I'm like, wait a minute, let me go to the Blu-ray, and I popped that in, and the Blu-rays do have all crossover episodes.
They do. Okay.
At least on the Flash. I don't know if Arrow Blu-rays have them all, or Legends, or Supergirl, but I know Flash does. Or at least from that. Well, season 1 only had the 1 episode crossover all with Flash versus Arrow, I think is what it was. But yeah, and so I'm like, okay, I'll just watch them on the Blu-ray from now on until I get to like season 5 or whatever, and then I'll switch over again. Which is going to make it really inconvenient for the last crossover.
Right.
Which, Crisis, I mean, you'll have to pick and choose the episodes, but
I will tell you that it's funny going and watching the episodes. You find, wow, I forgot about that part of it. Mm-hmm. Right, there are certain things that I really liked. I mean, I still feel like for Flash seasons 1 and 2 were just really tight, really focused. Gosh. They just were really, really good. And you know, I wasn't the hugest fan of Savitar. I think we've had conversations about the whole time travel timeline thing. I still the idea of an evil Barry has never sit right for me. It was a nice shock. It was a nice shock, but I didn't buy the evil Barry becoming a speed god thing. But still, there were some great episodes that were in there. But we did come across an episode that I should have loved, and that was the musical episode. You remember watching the musical episode?
I do, and I remember, and they actually kind of had a musical episode in the season 1. I mean, it wasn't really a musical episode; it was just a scene where Caitlin and Barry go out drinking, and Barry discovers alcohol has no effect on him, and they sing all these like Sonny and Cher songs. I think maybe I can't remember the songs they sing, but they sing on. It's like the first time Barry sings on the show.
They're singing karaoke, and they were doing
that
song from
Grease,
Summer Lovin'.
Right?
From Grease, yeah.
That's what it was. Okay,
I would not call that a musical.
No,
but there was. I felt like the Music Meister episode was sort of like fan service because both Melissa Benoist and Grant Gustin and the guy who played Music Meister, all 3 of them had been on Glee.
Okay.
So I knew that had been part of the reason why they had done that was because of their kind of relationship to that show. And I had already known that we knew that Joe could sing. We knew that the guy who played Dr. Stein, he was big on Broadway. And Jeremy Jordan has done a lot of work on Broadway. So those weren't super big surprises. I didn't know that Cisco could sing. He was a surprise.
Yeah, you don't look at him and think, oh, okay. It would have been cool though if they would have had like a musical episode that didn't really have any story to it and just had all the characters, the villains, and everybody. Like here's Reverse Flash singing at Zoom and Zoom singing back. Like imagine that, like in that Zoom voice singing a song.
It was all. I will say, unfortunately, it was pretty cringy. Yeah. I think it was one of the weaker storylines that both my wife and I, we were watching it, kind of looked at each other and
what is this?
Like, this is pretty bad. Probably one of my least favorite episodes. in the first 3 seasons. So,
I think I usually skip that one when it comes up, and not because I don't appreciate musicals. It's just the story of it, the writing, and the like. Why putting them together and making them sing against their will? Like, oh my god, we're singing! Like it's like I mentioned a minute ago. I would like it better if they just did a random musical episode that had nothing to do with a story of any kind and just had them there singing the whole hour, and then boom, it's over. Right. That would make more sense. I mean, it's just like, oh, it's a musical, okay, or like a Christmas special or something like that. Like sing Christmas songs the whole hour and have no story.
Yeah, I will tell you that for me, I had kind of I had remembered not liking it, and when I went back, sometimes you go back and you rewatch something and you go, maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah.
Well, I went back and watched it again, and now I'm like,
it's worse.
Bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, season 1 and 2, those are my favorite, I think, by far. I forgot how great and how solid season 1 was until I just finished it and got over to season 2 a couple of days ago. And I'm like, I'm on the second episode of the crossover now, just when they failed to capture Vandal Savage and Barry accidentally goes back in time and tells Oliver it doesn't work, and Oliver finds out he had a son, like all of that, like, oh, and it makes me want to go back and watch that period of Arrow along with it. But it's like, that's why I don't like rewatching these shows a lot, because I see a moment and I remember that story from that show, and it makes me want to go watch that show. And then I'm up for like hours and hours watching 3 or 4 episodes of 3 or 4 different shows.
Right.
And just, but season 2 is so good. And I'm waiting for that moment where Zoom kills Jay and then he pulls the mask off and it's Jay. And he's like, wow, now we've got a problem. Like, I love that scene. I love that episode. And in the moment, the big reveal, it's like, oh, that's not Jay Garrick. Like, I love that whole season. And that brings us to Flashpoint, which is what really makes the show kind of weird. I mean, that's kind of what throws the kink into all the whole, and like you said, the Savitar time travel brings up Reverse Flash and how is he still alive? And that's a whole set of like, I don't even want to think about it sometimes. And when I got to the last episode of season 1, my mind was blown all over again. I'm just like, how? No, how? Oh, headache.
I know. I still feel like the character of Reverse Flash is too big to fail. Right.
Right.
He's too established a character just to get rid of. But I do agree. If Eddie Thawne sacrificed himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
He killed himself to prevent the future Reverse Flash from ever being born. That should have taken him completely out of the running as a character.
Yeah, and I think it did in that moment. But like, how did that change? At what point? And a lot of people say it was Flashpoint. Because Barry basically erased the fact that Eddie did that. But if that were the case, then where's Eddie? He should be alive after Flashpoint. Unless maybe he died some other way. And the same could be said about Ronnie Raymond. What happened to him at the end of season 1? He goes up into the singularity, never to be heard from again. They assume he's dead. If Stein survived that and he fell to the ground and still survived that, where'd Ronnie go?
You remember that Flash caught Stein.
Oh, that's true. That's true. And I just watched that, so I should have remembered that more freshly.
I don't think they ever found his body, but
no.
I had kind of expected that at some point Ronnie would pop back up somewhere, considering all their back and forth between worlds. It never quite happened.
And especially after 6 years, you're like, okay, if you're going to do it, now's the time. Come on.
Right.
Hopefully one day they can bring him back, and then the Firestorm character itself is gone. And it's like, why? Come on, man. I mean, I get it. I guess I forget the reasoning, but I think the actor playing Stein was going on to more things or whatever, and that's fine.
Yeah, Victor Garber, I think, was going back to Broadway.
But if you can take someone like Robbie Amell and say, okay, you don't want to commit and you don't have to commit to a full series like Legends. And I believe that's what happened. He just didn't have the schedule to do a full show, which is cool. Like find somebody else and then still have Firestorm. The same could be said with Stein. Like if he can't be there, then why not find somebody else and do the same thing?
Well, I think they'd already gone through that whole process of pairing somebody, Robbie Amell leaving, and then bringing somebody else into Firestorm.
Yeah.
I think that they got tired of that repeating process of trying to find someone else to go and join.
That's true. It would have been cool to see a way for maybe Jax to be just Firestorm on his own. Or maybe he just wasn't intelligent enough to handle it. I don't know. But it seems like that would have been a way to do it. Have him just be Firestorm without needing someone else. But then I guess he's basically the Human Torch at that point, I don't know. But I loved the Firestorm character. I never really understood the character before the shows, but that's one of the characters I miss the most. I mean, we're so used to the Flash and all the different speedsters and this and that, and I'm remembering how much of a jerk Harry is, Harry Wells, and then but yeah, I don't know. The shows have, I don't want to say gotten stale, but there's no way you can really. I don't think you could ever top season 1 and 2.
No, and I think unfortunately a lot of shows kind of fall into that same pattern where they've got their high episodes and then it's just they never quite reach that apex again.
And I think maybe that's why season 3, I believe it was Savitar was season 3, and I think the reason that failed is because they didn't have that same formula. Like season 1 and 2 were almost identical in terms of like if you just described minimum plot points, you'd be describing the same series, like same seasons. Yeah. It's like scientist that acts like your friend and ends up turning on you is the main bad guy the entire time while the Flash tries to stop him. And I think that's what worked for season 1 and 2. It had that formula, it had that, that betrayal and that the science behind everything and learning to be faster and better only to have that taken away in some way because you're like defeated emotionally because this guy that you trusted and everything turned on you. And Savitar was never an ally. He was never a friend, really. He was always like angry and hateful and out and upfront about it. And I don't know, maybe that wasn't the entire thing, but I feel like that was missing. That the whole, okay, this season I went into it, like on season 3, wondering how is the next friend going to turn on them? But there was no friend that turned on them. I was like, wait a minute, that's missing that element.
Well, I mean, I think Julian, no, Julian and Barry were, frenemies.
Yeah, well, yeah, kind of.
But they didn't realize for quite a while that Julian was alchemy.
Mm-hmm.
So there was an element of that.
And the alchemy character, I feel like, wasn't really looked into as much as it should have been. I feel like they could have went an entire half a season with the alchemy stuff thinking he was the villain.
Yeah.
And they do that for a short time. They're like, oh, alchemy, oh my God. And then it's like, oh, you're just a little errand boy, basically. You're not even a villain. You're just a guy.
I think they like once alchemy was revealed as being Julian, he never shows up again. Mm-hmm. Julian doesn't even seem to deal with or struggle with that persona at all. It's almost like they just stopped caring a whole lot about him. Let him join Team Flash.
And then he just disappears. Like,
yeah.
They put all that time into establishing that, and he's gone. I kind of miss him in a way. Once he became a friend and not so much of a jerk, I really started to like him. And then he was gone.
Yeah. And I think part of it was that there really wasn't a really clear relationship with he and Caitlin.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't really fill a need on the team. They already had plenty of smart people. So, and
yeah,
so it really Julian's character had been brought in to create tension between he and Barry. And So Barry didn't need another friend. Um, so
Yeah, that makes sense.
I enjoyed having him on Tom Felton in
Oh
the
yeah.
cast, and being a Harry Potter fan, I kind of like that as well.
Mhm.
But I understand why they didn't bring him back for the next season. So
I kind of had that moment too when Kevin Smith directed a few episodes of The Flash. I think 3 episodes. Maybe it was just 2. I don't know. I know season 2. I think it was his first one. I believe it was.
the
Was
Runaway
it season
Dinosaur.
2? Yes, Runaway Dinosaur. I couldn't remember if that was 2 or 3, but I had to think for a second. I haven't gotten that far into it yet. That was a great episode. I mean, it was mostly there was not a lot of action. It was mostly just, I guess, Barry and the Speed Force. A lot of it, but it was so good. And then there was another episode that he did later on. I can't remember if I think it was season 3, where they were unofficially there, but the Jay and Silent Bob characters were in the Flash, and like the fans, like his fans, kind of like caught on really quick. I did. I knew he was going to be directing that episode. I saw it. Then I saw those two dressed in those security outfits or whatever it was, and then the one guy didn't talk and the other guy wouldn't stop talking. It's like that's totally who that is.
Yeah.
Of course, they didn't say that, but I mean, it's kind of a wink, wink kind of thing. I loved that episode just because of that one moment. It's like, I see what you did there, but yeah, I mean, the Flash. I don't know what to expect going forward. I mean, we're kind of getting close to the season 7 premiere. It's I think first week of February. I think it is. Or late January.
There are 2 more episodes, right, to finish off the season that they weren't able to complete.
I think it's either 1 or 2, but they're technically counting that as the new season now. I think.
Oh, okay.
Like season 6 is done, and I think it's already on Blu-ray or whatever, and it might even be. I think it's already on Netflix. But I haven't rewatched it yet. But yeah, I think there was at least 1 or 2 episodes that they didn't air. That they were, I know the next episode was like 90-something% finished. They just had like maybe 1 or 2 days of shooting left to finish it. And unfortunately, they got hit with the lockdowns like right before that happened. Same with Batwoman. Like they were almost done and then they had to cut like a few days short. And then I'm kind of excited to see where that show goes.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had finally, Ruby Rose had finally kind of, won me over, and then she leaves.
Yeah.
I'm trying hard. I don't know anything about the person who's taking on that role. I know that it certainly is going in a entirely different direction.
Yeah,
I'm trying to just reserve judgment and wait and see what she brings to the character.
The only thing I do know for sure is what I've seen online, and that's, they've shown pictures of her in her suit, which, it's a little bit different. Obviously, it's a different person inside the suit. But I do know they're going to keep the character essentially the same as far as character traits and personality. I know like the character's sexuality, she's going to be the same. Like she's going to be, it's going to be a lesbian character, which is kind of cool because that's what the show kind of is built around, and that's
right.
And it's not too overpowering either. It's not too in your face. It's great. It's great representation and everything, and I like that. It's good they're not changing that about the character, even though it's an entirely different character. And I also like the fact that they didn't just recast the character. They left the option open to maybe one day have her back and have 2 Batwomen, maybe. Hopefully one would become something else and not just have 2 Batwomen running around and,
I mean, a female Nightwing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you would call her, but I'm trying to come up with a catchy nickname, but I'm no Cisco. I can't come up with quick names.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see where it goes. We don't really know much about the character. I know they did create the character out of nowhere. They didn't base it on another character. They just kind of invented a new character. Which a lot of people got upset about, but it's like, it doesn't have to be, beat by beat the exact same as a comic book. And I think it's refreshing sometimes when a show that's adapting like a comic book property, changes some of it and makes it their own things. It kind of adds to it. Really, it's not just a copy of the same story told in a new way. It's a new story.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to movies or TV shows based off of comic books, the truth is they're all adaptations.
Mm-hmm.
None of them are direct, frame by frame exactly the same.
Right.
I've seen some that are close, but most often, they're going to add to it to make it their own.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the question is if they end up making something that is, ultimately believable.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just excited to see like where the whole, and I still can't recall it the CW verse. I'm sorry, it's always going to be the Arrowverse to me.
Me too.
And I don't know where they're going to go with it because like half the characters, not characters necessarily, but half the shows are done after this year. You've got.
I think that the timing of it is, I think, really important. That if they're all ending, you've got all these actors and characters that could go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, having a Justice League would be the best place where you could showcase certain actors. You wouldn't have to have necessarily all of them on call at the same time. But I really do feel like that's the one place they really haven't explored.
Mm-hmm.
I had thought that when Legends came on, that and with a lot of these crossovers, that we were getting really, really close to a Justice League without
Mm-hmm.
calling it that. And with the Flash and the Hall of Justice, I think we've been given a lot of little, I don't know, something to be hopeful for.
Yeah, and that like these decisions to end, what is it like? Maybe 3 shows, or I don't know if there's a 4th. I know Black Lightning, Supergirl, both gone after this year, and last year it was Arrow. I mean, next on the block is what, like, and the Flash is like their main show, so that's going to stick around. Superman and Lois is brand new, so that's not going anywhere, at least for probably 2 or 3 years. There's not much left. I mean, what else is left? There, Batwoman, Superman and Lois, and Flash, and Legends if it survives. I mean, I don't know what else they have.
Well, I mean, I would still consider Stargirl.
Right, I forgot about Stargirl. How could? Well, I guess I forgot about it because it's still fairly new and it came during the off season and everything. So Stargirl would be part of that. Yeah. But I think it would lead to a Justice League show, and I think it could be set up kind of like Heroes, where Heroes, is about all, but yet there are several episodes where a lot of those characters don't even appear. So you don't have to have every actor every episode. You really could just have, it's Superman and Flash today, and then next week it might be Batwoman and I don't know, somebody else. And I feel like if they were to do,
I really think that. Yeah, mm-hmm. I think that on Stargirl we're going to see the kind of an approximation to the Justice League in their Justice Society. I think ultimately they're going to end up building up that roster.
I was hoping that like if Legends were to ever get I don't want to say canceled, but if Legends were to ever end, they could take a show like Legends and kind of make a but a Justice League show out of that. But now that you mentioned Stargirl, it's like they are doing the Justice Society, so would there really be a need for 2 team shows? I don't. It would be cool though, because you could have Justice Society teaming up with Justice League. I mean, you've already got a Flash, you've already got at least Batwoman and Superman and Supergirl. There's enough there to really form a Justice League. I don't think they've done a Cyborg yet on the Arrowverse, but I mean, I'm really excited about Stargirl because I think they're doing a version of the Green Lantern, I think, this season, if I remember hearing right. There was a picture of a female wearing a green ring, and it's like, okay, and so that's intriguing. Like, and they've been carrying that lantern around for the whole first season. Like, what are you going to do with this? When are you going to show this? What are you going to do? And they don't put those things in by accident.
No,
they have a plan. So, I mean, I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah, Jim Gaffigan. You know who Jim Gaffigan is?
Yes.
Okay, so the comedian, he's in the cast for season 2.
Yeah, I read something about that. I don't remember the details, but I know he's going to be voicing a character. I don't know if he's going to physically be acting as anybody, but I know he's going to at least be involved in as far as his voice. Which either way, I mean, that guy, I like that guy. He's funny, and I like. I don't think I've ever seen anything he did that I hated.
I'm hoping they will let him be funny.
Mhm.
Like to me, it would be a real waste of his talent to have him deliver, lines straight. So I'm hoping that they end up using his timing in order to make that character more interesting. I guess we're gonna have to. I'm gonna just kind of cross my fingers and hope that things work out the way we want them to.
Yeah, hopefully, and hopefully,
So
hopefully, hopefully it comes out at least good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I hate to
man.
cut us off. I've got to wrap things up over here.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good time to live. I'm gonna put the little Twitter on there. Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, I think this is a good one. I've had fun, and hopefully soon the Facebook stuff
All right.
levels out.
Keep me posted on how that gets resolved.
I'm gonna let you know if I get parole.
Right.
Or
Maybe
a
you can get a
pardon.
conjugal visit in there while you're at it.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. It might get me in trouble though, because apparently
Right.
I'm a deviant or whatever.
Yeah. My goodness.
All my bad images that I have all over the place that I'm just collecting from people on the internet.
Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah. So it's been fun, and next week I hopefully, as long as there's no internet glitches, I'll be able to jump on right on time.
Okay. I'll be ready.
All right. Maybe by then a Facebook will be cleared out. Maybe I can communicate easier through a messenger. Hopefully, we'll see. It says 4 days on the one account, so I don't know. Hopefully soon.
All right. Sounds good. Have a good night. All right.
You too.